Good Sunday morning. This is the last day of August, Sunday, August 31, 2025. And I found this little thing here. It says, Jesus cares. So I thought I'd read it to you. It is so good and it's anonymous. They don't know who wrote it. Jesus cares. There is never a day so dreary, but God can make it bright. And unto the soul that trust him, he give us songs in the night. There is never a path so hidden, but God can lead the way. If we seek for the Spirit's guidance and patiently wait and pray. There is never a cross so heavy, but the nail scarred hands are there, outstretched, tender, compassionate, the burden to help us to bear. There is never a heart so broken, but the loving Lord can lead. The heart that has pierced on Calvary, death doeth still for his loved ones feed. Yes, so that's right. There is never a life so darkened, so hopeless and unblessed, but may be filled with the light of God and enter his promised rest. There is never a sin or sorrow. There is never a care or loss, but that we may bring to Jesus and leave it at the foot of the cross. That's good for Sunday morning. So we're better. Thank you, Jesus. We are so thankful. James went on to church this morning, and I'm sitting here and I'm going to stream it in a few minutes. Not long, because that's so nice that I can stream Brother Carmichael and have closed captioning, which I didn't turn my hearing aid off. Well, I got my mics on today. Now, yesterday, I did a little video without my mics. I completely forgot about them. And I was reading this morning about memory loss. And I think I've had that my whole life because when I was a little girl and I wanted to be in plays, they had, who's going to try out for that? But you know what? I could not remember the lines. I never could remember them. And even now, I still lose words at times. I think, well, what word am I hunting for? And sometimes I just have, what I do? I Google it. I'll give a description and then I can find the word. So that's how you deal with your memory loss. And I have had memory loss for different things in a long time. I never did remember people's names very good. I would groom their dogs. I was a dog groomer for many years. And I would remember the dog's name, Sparky, Pebbles, whatever. But who was the owner? I don't know. I had it written down in a book, such and such appointment, certain time, and I could do it. And so I've been reading this book this morning about being happy. Being happy. And one of the big points in it is the words of your mouth. What you say is what you are. You know, as a man speaketh in his heart, so is he, or thinketh in his heart, so is he. So I do try to think good thoughts, and I was beginning to think I wasn't going to get well. Now, that's not good, but I am well today, and we went out to McDonald's for breakfast and shared it because you get that big breakfast. It has 3 pancakes, scrambled eggs, piece of sausage, and a hash brown and a biscuit, and syrup. And so we just shared it. And James says, I didn't know I was that hungry. So his appetite has come back this morning. He ate his pancakes and his eggs and his sausage, and we got our coffee here. Yesterday, we didn't get any McDonald's coffee, and Buddy or James says, I miss that. I call him Buddy sometimes because he is so sweet, and his personality is so much like my first husband, which is wonderful because he was easy to get along with, and James is easy to get along with. So I made a meatloaf the other day, but what I did yesterday was I ordered me a fish dinner from Mark's Feed Store, which is a nice restaurant, and you can order it to go. And you have two big pieces of fish and a big salad, with blue cheese, dressing, 2 cups, and baked beans. And so he said, I don't want none of that. So I had a picnic while he was in, I mean, 2 big old pieces of fish. And it is called lemon pepper fish. It's this big, and it's swai, if you know what swai is. But I like it. They call it the Asian catfish. So I sat there and ate. It had a fork and a knife in it, so I cut me off a piece and I fixed up a little bit of that salad and some of those baked beans, and I just sat there and had a picnic in the van while he was in the thrift store. And he came back out and he lifted the trunk of the car and he put something in. And I said, honey, when he got in the car, I said, what did you buy? He said, well, I got a few tools. Tools? I said, was it a toolbox full of tools? He said, yes. I said, now how many does that make? Toolboxes. He collects toolboxes also. He said, I haven't counted them lately. I said, well, neither have I. But he stacks them out in the garage at our house on Slate Run. And I bet he's got 5 or 6 or 7 toolboxes with tools. I said, well, what kind of tools did it have? He said, well, screwdrivers and all kinds of things. I said, James, I have a tool container at my house that I keep. It has 2 screwdrivers, a flathead and a Phillips head. I have a pair of pliers, and I have one of those monkey wrenches, whatever you can adjust to turn something, you need to turn it, and a hammer. And I said, that's pretty well it. And then I have a bobby pin. I said, you can't have a toolbox without a bobby pin, and I wear it in my hair. You'd be surprised how handy a bobby pin is at times. So I said, I got my tools, and I've got them in a little basket, and they sit in the corner of the washroom. So I got my tools, and I have a bigger hammer in case I need it. And I never hardly ever need my tools. I used to need them often. Now, when I was younger, and I lived here, and I was the one. If we got a leaky roof, I took a bucket of tar and went on the roof and fixed the roof. I knew where to patch it. I learned how to patch roofs till we could get a new roof, because new roofs are very expensive. And we would patch it until we had to get a roof. Now, after I married James, I did get a new roof put on this house, and it run me about $9,000 to get it all done. I got it in my head I wanted a tin roof over this little apartment where I live. I thought, I want to hear the rain on the roof, on a tin roof, and just sleep by it, because when I was a little girl and we used to go to Grandma and Grandpa's down in Mink Holler, and they had a tin roof on that big old 2-story house they had. And we slept upstairs, and I would stay upstairs with my Aunt Virgie, who was, and Aunt Freddie. Freddie was my age, and Virgie's was 4 years younger, and there was beds up there, and us girls slept up there in one bedroom. There was another bedroom where the boys slept. So that roof, when it would rain, and we slept on straw mattresses that just rattled when you moved around. And Freddie, my one aunt that was my age, had measles when she was about 3 years old, and it caused her to go deaf. So I've told this before, but Freddie couldn't hear it thunder, but they got her a hearing aid, and it fit down on her chest, around her neck on a ribbon, and it was an amplifier, and she could hear me talk. And I was a talker back then. So I would just talk, 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 and finally she would say, Clarine, I'm turning my hearing aid off. I might as well shut up. I didn't have a listener. She would turn it off. And I told James about that. And so now when he wants to go to sleep and for me to get done, he says, honey, I'm turning my hearing aid off. He don't even have hearing aid, but we think that's funny. So he just turns it off. But reading this Being Happy book is really encouraging, because it is as you think in your heart, you know. And I have been feeling so rotten here lately, and we have spent so much time in the bed. I think we're finally done, but we got up this morning about 4:30, And I looked at James and I said, I believe I'm going back and taking another little nap. He said, I believe I will too. So we both went back to bed and we got up at 7 o'clock. Now he had to leave early to get to church. So he says, I'm going to church today. I feel better. So he went on to church and I'm getting ready to watch my pastor preach. And I hope he remembers to put on closed captioning because I really like the closed captioning because sometimes they get, ever who handles the mics gets them lower or higher and they don't do too good. I could teach them how to run a sound system, but they have not asked me. So I don't guess I'll get to do that. But if they put on closed captioning, then us that are hard of hearing and has problem even with hearing aids sometimes, that we could read what's going on, and it's so much nicer. Now, all these friends of mine, like Granny Pat and Kentucky Life and all those, you know, Kentucky Life with Debbie, uh, and Senior Insights, they all have closed captioning on their things. And, you know, sometimes I just watch it because Senior Insights has the problem I have sometimes. She sounds lower. And so did Granny Pat the other day. She sounded lower, but she's got closed captioning. So I can just read along as she's talking and I can get it all, which I really appreciate that they have turned on closed captioning. But John, Pastor John, turned his closed captioning off for that last Wednesday night service, and I was so disgusted with that. Lord help me. It aggravates me when they don't mind me. But he did. I requested that he do it, and he did it a while. I requested it from his wife. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Because she was so sweet about me and James being sick, and she texted us and said, "Is there anything I can do?" And I said, "Well, you could ask him to turn on closed captioning." She said, "I'll mention it to him," and she did, and he turned it on, and now he's turned it off again. Heaven help that boy. Well, he's just 50 or something. He's just a boy to me, but he's a fine man of God. And he studied and he got his, he's, he's wrote books now. He's a genius. He is so smart. And I tell you what he is, he's a prayer warrior. He prays and prays and prays. And he says, if you don't pray nothing else, pray the Lord's Prayer because that covers everything. And you know what I really like about the Lord's Prayer is about the forgiveness, because forgiveness is such a hard thing sometimes. It's hard to forgive somebody that's done you so dirty. And they're out there, honey. But you have to forgive. And it's hard to forget it, but you let it go, because in the Lord's Prayer it says, forgive me as I forgive those who trespass against me. So if we don't forgive, then you are literally tying God's hands yourself by not forgiving. And God can't forgive you if you don't forgive, because you say, forgive me as I forgive those who trespass and do sins against me. So a long time ago, I learned to let it go. And you don't always forget it, but let it go and go on like nothing happened. The best thing sometimes to do is when you have a big argument with somebody or something, the next time you see them, just act like nothing happened. Now, Buddy used to, once in a while, really hold a grudge against them. Well, there was one special pastor out of Palmyra. He's already went to heaven. Most of the people I know have already went to heaven. But anyway, Brother Shell, a fine man of God, but he would book a meeting with us, and then he would cancel it at the last minute. Well, when you're traveling on love offering, it is important that you get gas money. And that's what we needed mostly, was gas money. And he would cancel us. And he did that. One year we was in, and he booked us, and then he said, I'm sorry, but I'm canceling that. And Buddy says, I don't think he's sorry at all. I says, he says he's just sorry. I said, now, honey. And so if we'd run into him at the mall or someplace, Buddy would just say very briefly, hello, goodbye. And I would stop and talk to him. And Buddy would get on me later and say, why do you want to be friendly with him? I said, well, for one thing, I forget that, and my memory's not too good. I forget that we're aggravated at him and I like him. So I would go ahead and just chat with him like nothing ever happened. And but finally Buddy would get over it. But he fought. he had to work at it. But then the next thing you know, Brother Shell would book us again and we would go hold meetings. And I remember how he used to pray. He would pray, Lord, save them from the east, save them from the west, save them from every direction. And Lord, let them meet you and let us help introduce them to you, Jesus. And he had a growing little church out there in Palmyra for years. It was a good little church, and we held meetings there. And then we held meetings in Scottsburg, Indiana. In December, it's hard for an evangelist to get a meeting because they don't have revivals much in the wintertime. And so we would be home for the winter, and Brother Shell would book us. Sometimes he kept his appointments. And then the guy from Scottsburg would book us, and we would have those meetings. And we had some really good revivals out Scottsburg. That pastor went on to Iowa. He went to Iowa and got a church, and he wanted us to come out there and hold him a meeting. And it was November one year, years ago. He says, we'll put you up in the finest motel. You can leave your fifth wheel home. Well, did we ever regret that? Have you ever tried to stay in a motel day after day? Well, they still came and got us and took us out to eat, and that was a break. But it was the most boring time. I mean, just sit there and watch TV, and I didn't have any good books to read, and I was up the creek without a paddle. Because if I don't have a good book to read or there was nothing on TV, the food was delicious. Now, out there, they have the Greek food. And that Greek food, I learned to love it. I can't cook it though, but it was so good. And they would take us out to these Greek restaurants, and I enjoyed the food, and the people enjoyed the revival, and they carried it over another week. So we had 2 weeks out there, and the wind blew all the time, and it was so cold. I do not remember Iowa with fondness at all, but now I loved Louisiana and I loved New York State churches. They were, because when we went to New York State with pastor up there, they took us to Niagara Falls, and I got to see Niagara Falls and a lot of things, and it was beautiful up there, upper New York State. And we went and stayed in a park up there in the fall, and the leaves were coming down, and golden leaves and red leaves all around. We got to, like, I had a Sunday through Wednesday, and then we went and stayed in this state park Friday, Saturday, till we traveled on to our next church, and it was just a gorgeous time. I had so many, many gorgeous times traveling on the evangelistic field. It was a treat, but now I don't want to travel. I don't want to go. I'm happy. I don't want to travel more than 30 minutes from home. I've been there, done that. And so James Sunday, no, tomorrow, this is Sunday. Tomorrow he's going to that birthday party, and it's an hour to get there and an hour to get back. And then they have, it's so crowded with family over there, and I have nothing in common with them except James, and he loves to talk to him forever. So he has, I'm not going. I'm going to stay home where there's no more to catch another cold. Fact is, James got up this morning. He said, I'm afraid I'm catching a fresh cold. That's negative. No, we are not doing that. But I'm going to stay home and just have a quiet time with me and y'all. And this is enough for Sunday morning. I'm going to go listen to Pastor John. So God bless you all, and you walk that path where Jesus would be pleased with you. And just remember, let go and let God. Forgive people when they're mean to you and unkind to you, and just get over it. Don't dwell on it. Think on ever whatsoever things are lovely and good, it says in Philippians, the 4th chapter. If there be any profit, think on good things. That's my admonition to you. Love you. Bye bye.